Okay, so also thinking about other movies that we love, this is our 10th episode.
10th episode. Big number.
And usually we end our episodes just talking about whatever it is that we love at that moment and whatever we think really needs to be talked about at that moment. But on our 5th episode, we did our 1 through 5 top 5 favorite movies. And we thought it might be fun to finish out our 10 and give a 6 through 10 as the things that we love today.
Yep. And I think on episode 5, I started. So do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first again? Because I know you're number 10. You're going to make a last-minute decision on it, sounds.
No, I'll go for it.
Okay, let's do it. Ooh.
I'll give a quick update to the audience that my first top 5 favorite movies, not giving any explanation or anything, just a reminder, were, of course, Hot Rod, Alien, The Royal Tenenbaums, Fellowship of the Ring, and Tremors. All right, moving on. Which also want to say, watched Tremors earlier this week. We had a thunderstorm. We all lost internet. I decided to watch something off my DVD shelf. I watched Tremors. That movie's incredible. Holds up perfectly.
I'm glad you watched it again.
My number 6 favorite film. This was the movie that kind of got bumped by Tremors. This was a movie that I've seen probably over a dozen times. I just keep revisiting because I think it's kind of a perfect popcorn blockbuster film, is the 2009 Star Trek film.
Oh.
J.J. Abrams' 09 Star Trek. I love that
Yeah.
movie. That movie is just like high emotion and glossy and fun, and every actor is so well cast in that movie. And Eric Bana is the villain. I just love that movie. It freaking rips. Into Darkness.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Into Darkness has some cool stuff, but is ultimately a really stupidly written movie. And Beyond's a lot of fun, but that first one is just so good.
It's perfect. There's a reason why it's the movie I've actually seen in theaters the most, because it was such a satisfying theater experience.
Just kept you coming back.
I saw that movie. It's a weird thing to admit to. I saw that movie 9 times in theaters because I just was like,
that's crazy.
This movie is going to be out of theaters eventually, and I will never be able to experience it like this again. So I just needed to like get it in my mind that way as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it is you're right. It's such a popcorn movie. Like maybe it's not a like perfectly written or like, but it's perfect to me. Like it is just like, and I love like the simple tricks of like standing actors on a mirror while JJ is just shooting them down for like those falling sequences. Like what a well directed, easily my favorite JJ Abrams directed movie, bar none. Fantastic.
I agree.
Fantastic
yeah,
film.
no question.
Yeah. Cool. Good.
So yeah, I love that movie. My number 7 favorite film is The Witch, The Vivitch. That we talked about in our first episode about The Lighthouse, Robert Eggers' first film. I saw that a couple times in theaters. The theater going experience in that movie was unlike almost anything I've ever seen. I love that movie. I think that every performance, I think the production design, I think everything about that movie just clicks, and it deeply affected me. And yeah, I think that it's kind of so straightforward, but so deep and so well-rounded.
It's a fantastic movie. I've only watched it once because it did that sequence I described on episode 1 where the crows are sort of like pecking at the mother's breasts. That image haunts me to this day. Like haunts me to the point of like the same level as like The Ring haunted me when the mother first finds her daughter in the closet. Like that image,
that closet shot
stuck with me forever, and I don't think that witch image will stick with me forever. And I'm almost scared to go back and watch that movie. It is a terrifying movie.
So good.
It's really good.
It's so good.
I agree.
Shout out our buddy actor Matt Ammerman. When he first saw that movie, he said he didn't like it, and his response was because there wasn't enough witch stuff in it. And I was like, dude, it was all witch stuff. That's the point. It's all her. She was doing it.
Maybe he should watch Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, number 8 favorite movie. Also, I would say, well, not also, obviously, because it's the highest ranked one, my favorite Coen Brothers movie, Burn After Reading.
Nice.
Which might make me seem like an insane person, but I think that movie is also incredible. I think, speaking of my favorite Frances McDormand performances, that's the one for me.
Really?
And It's so good. I think that Clooney and Pitt are magical in it. I just love that movie. It is so funny. It is so pointless. J.K. Simmons is so funny in it in his final scenes, and that movie rips. It's so
I
good.
will say that is thinking about the Coen brothers films, because I'm actually not a huge fan of Raising Arizona. I like enjoyed that the first time I saw it, but I didn't really love the comedy of it. I enjoy the more darkly comic moments of Barton Fink. But speaking of Burn After Reading, that's their most successful kind of like absurd, farcical, it really means nothing type of movies. Like I didn't connect as much with Hail Caesar, but Burn After Reading
which is kind of in that vein.
Yeah. And then I guess Barton Fink is, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just gonna say, I guess Barton Fink is a little bit. That's a different tone than Burn After Reading, and I've never seen Oh Brother Where Art Thou, and I need to see that because I hear that's very similar in tone.
I love Oh Brother Where Art Thou. I feel like in recent years that movie has started getting a little bit of shit. Like it's like not as good as people remember it being, and I think that's kind of crap. I think that movie rules. Cool. And I think, I've said this before, that I think that there's this kind of beautiful two sides of the Coen coin, and not even just saying that in the fact that they're brothers, but in their style, how like their first two movies, Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, are really this one like dark, gritty crime thriller. The other one is this very cartoonish, very silly comedy movie, and most of their movies are one or the other of those things, and often can exist kind of in a conversation with each other. And Burn After Reading was a movie that was written in tandem with No Country for Old Men. That they literally were writing those screenplays every other day.
Wow.
The way that they said that they handled keeping levity in writing how intense No Country for Old Men was that every other day they were writing Burn After Reading. And when they got their deal to make No Country for Old Men, it included a green light for Burn After Reading. And that movie came out less than a year after.
Cool.
And that to be the one that, No Country for Old Men will probably kind of always be considered their like great critically successful. It won all those Oscars. It really did the big moves. That I think it being the weird compliment to that, I've always really dug.
That's such an interesting way to sort of write, because it seems like that would, when you're writing such kind of like opposite ends of tonal spectrums, it seems like that would be a really just healthy habit to sort of like go into the dark one day, go into the light, and just switch back and forth. That's an interesting way of working.
Okay. Number 9, I'll hurry through these. Number 9 is 10 Cloverfield Lane, also a recent movie that was also one of my favorite theater-going experiences. That is a movie that when I think about things that I like to write, or stories that when I start, and when I have an idea, whenever I have an idea that ends up like, oh man, I don't even know if I'm ever actually going to go like sit down and write this script, but I had just this one day where I ended up coming up with all of the major beats, the idea of like this insane feature film structure or whatever. It always ends up being something that is kind of structured like 10 Cloverfield Lane. These like isolated, weird character pieces that by their third act have something really fucking weird happen.
Yeah.
And 10 Cloverfield Lane is a dope movie. It is totally unrelated to all the other Cloverfield movies. And just Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, and John Gallagher giving incredible performances.
It doesn't even take place in like the same universe as like the Cloverfield movie?
No, it's like no, I actually don't want to say why it's not, but it's
fair
not
enough.
really.
Okay, fair enough.
No.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. I was gonna be like, well, it's this, and I was like, that kind of ruins a lot of some of the tension in it. So if you haven't seen it,
because it was written as something else, right?
Standalone movie.
And then it became
standalone movie.
10 Cloverfield Lane.
They were already in production, and the idea that since it was already being produced by Bad Robot, the idea of turning it into a Cloverfield movie happened midstream.
Fascinating.
Which I also think is, when we talk about like the Die Hard movies or whatever that all kind of got co-opted into the Die Hard franchise, I think it's almost cool that Dan Trachtenberg was able to keep the integrity of his movie and let it be such a confidently standalone weird film. And when they were like, we're going to put it into Cloverfield, he's like, whatever, if it has Cloverfield on it, that'll get more asses in the seat, and I will work within what they're doing and still let my movie be my movie. And I think that's awesome.
That is cool. That's cool.
And he's now writing the next Predator movie, and that excites me because I think that that's a guy who maybe can handle working within like weird franchise stipulations.
I hope so. I feel like I've wanted a good Predator sequel for so long. Hopefully someone is able to bring it.
Yeah. And also, so my number 10, also to keep with recency bias, because, you know, The Witch and 10 Cloverfield Lane were both 16 and 17. Mm-hmm. Also with recency bias, 2015's masterpiece, Mad Max Fury Road, is my number 10 favorite movie. That's just another perfect movie that I could put on. If I don't know what to watch, I could put on that movie and blink and it's over and I'm satisfied and it's perfect.
That's a really perfect movie. I will agree with that. Mad Max. It's funny how I still think
kills.
I think I enjoy Road Warrior a little bit more. It might be because of the slightly kind of smaller scale aspect of the film. There's something about there's something about the final chase scene in Road Warrior that it just feels so perfect to me. It's pretty magical.
Yeah.
But I will agree. Mad Max Fury Road is fantastic.
And nothing much really even needs to be said on my end about that. That movie just kills. Again, it's a ripper. So
it's amazing. No, it's definitely George Miller firing on all cylinders at that point. It's
pun directly intended.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so hey Chris, what movies do you love the 6th to 10th most?
Number 6. Oh, actually, well, first I'll do what you did. Just a reminder, my top 5 movies was Evil Dead 2. And I'm going to say Dead by Dawn is, I guess, officially not in the title. It was in the foreign release. And I think that I have a DVD that has it written on it in one section of it. And so I assumed that was the official title. But
to you, in your heart,
it's Dead by Dawn. But yes, number 1,
cool.
Evil Dead. Number 2, Hocus Pocus. Number 3, The Mummy from 1999. Number 4,
again, 3 Books of the Dead.
I love the Book of the Dead. I love it.
Yep.
Number 4, 12 Angry Men from 1957. And number 5, a Coen Brothers written, Sam Raimi directed film called Crime Wave from 1985. And my number 6 movie is Spaceballs from 1987.
Nice. I love Spaceballs.
I think I could quote that entire movie. I've seen Spaceballs so many times. It was my introduction to Mel Brooks, who was pretty much my first favorite director. I think I started with Spaceballs. I went to History of the World, Part 1, and then to Blazing Saddles, and then Young Frankenstein. And actually, Robin Hood Men in Tights might have been before those. But it was like Spaceballs, Robin Hood Men in Tights, History of the World. And I love all of his movies, but Spaceballs is the one that just feels... It's just firing on all cylinders. I find that movie so funny from start to finish. It is just a fantastic film, a fantastic spoof that seems to have come a few years too late, especially if you read the reviews of that movie. But I love Spaceballs.
I guess. But also, I definitely saw Spaceballs before I saw any Star Wars movies in full.
Yep, me too.
And that's great. I saw Robin Hood Men in Tights before I saw any other Robin Hood movies in full.
I don't even think I've seen any other Robin Hood movies. Oh, wait, I did see the stupid Russell Crowe one.
Point. Yeah, that movie rules. Good on you.
Yep, Spaceballs is great. My number 7 is another one of my favorite directors, 1999's Dogma. That was my introduction to Kevin Smith, and as we've spoken, we both kind of, I had some views of Catholicism as I was being raised in Catholicism, and this movie I thought was a healthy way of satirizing religion and Catholicism while not really being a movie against faith. I think that the movie itself still kind of, I can tell that Kevin Smith is still a person who is a believer, but he is always challenging kind of his belief. And I think Dogma is a nice representation of that. It's a great film. I think it's his best film.
And I think that in a weird way that, I've always admired when people are able to take existing religious canon and kind of turn it into the fantasy world in which you base a fantasy story in.
Yep.
And I think that showing his knowledge and his deep understanding of the Catholic religion, warts and all, is like why he's able to get away with being so satirical and kind of so critical of it, while still showing that he clearly knows so much about it and is able to make a fantasy romp using the rules of Catholicism. And I think that that's like a fun thing to do.
I think so too. And I was kind of between that one and Clerks 2, because those are kind of the two that I consider my favorite Kevin Smith movies. But the more I go back and watch Dogma, the more I realize that is kind of the, like, Clerks 2 gets me emotionally unexpectedly. But Dogma when, I'm going to say her name wrong. Linda Fiorentino? Is it like Fiorentino? I apologize. Linda Fiorentino.
You were close.
Has a really amazing emotional moment that gets me every time, when she's sort of talking about how she was a child and how she had faith in God and how she never questioned it. And as she grew up, she wished she could have that feeling again. And that's definitely something, as a person who was raised religious, that's something I've felt before, and I connect with that. And it's a very powerful scene in a movie that has a rubber poop monster, and it proves how much Kevin Smith is kind of able to grab you by the heart when you least expect it. And I love him.
Yeah. And I talk a lot about movies who have like good balancing acts, and that's definitely Dogma. Yep. It is balancing a lot of things in a good way. I agree. Yeah.
My number 8 is a more recent film from 2011. I'm forgetting the director. Take Shelter. It's not Mike Nichols. It might be Jeff Nichols, though. Jeff Nichols. Yeah. Okay, that's why I was thinking of Mike Nichols. Take Shelter, which is a movie about Michael Shannon plays a character who is kind of plagued with apocalyptic visions, and the entire movie is kind of just whether or not he is struggling with schizophrenia or what he thinks is going to happen is real. And it's a fascinating movie about mental health. And I think Michael Shannon has never been better. I think he moves me to such places. Jessica Chastain, this is also kind of...
He's incredible.
Yeah, he's incredible. This is also a big introduction for me with Jessica Chastain, who I think is a stunning actress. She is fantastic in everything she does. I mean, the big showpiece is obviously Zero Dark 30, but I think she plays a very conflicted character in Take Shelter. She's trying to support her husband, but she doesn't know if she should be. And it's a really...
Or if she believes
him. And it's a really fascinating film. Can't recommend Take Shelter enough. Love that movie. And number 9 is my favorite comic book movie that is not based on a comic book, and that is 1990's Darkman. I think that movie is the best comic book movie ever made, and I think it's because Sam Raimi basically, he wanted to make a Batman movie. He couldn't make a Batman movie, and so he just basically decided, I'm going to make my own superhero, and I'm going to use tropes from like classic cinema, because Darkman is sort of this person who, he's a man of many faces, because he can create kind of these alternate faces that he can wear and sort of like disguise himself. I think there's a lot of visual gags. I think this is Sam Raimi using everything that he's learned to kind of just from like the Evil Dead franchise to just kind of step up that budget a little bit. He's working with Bill Pope, who's a famous DP of like The Matrix and like huge action movies that came later. And I think they worked together.
And ended up he shot Spider-Man.
You're right. Yeah, they ultimately ended up working on the Spider-Man franchise. And
it was Bill Pope was the one who had the idea of actually like free dangling a camera from a helicopter through the New York skyline so they could add in Spider-Man swinging through it. But why it had that motion of it moving through is because it was this like swinging, almost the way that Sam Raimi was famous for making the Raimi cam of like the camera on the board that was weighted down so it could swing and move through the woods. They like literally turned that into dangling from a helicopter. for Spider-Man, and it's awesome.
That must have been the most dangerous shoot days of just destroying cameras to get those shots.
Bill Pope is the fucking coolest.
Bill Pope is the coolest, and I think this is Darkman is the first time they work together, and it is just
it's
great.
Sam
Raimi at his most absurd, but also like there's like a sequence when like Frances McDormand is the main character in this movie, and I think she's kind of come out and sort of said that she doesn't like her performance in this movie, and I think it's because a lot of, and maybe I'm assuming too much in this, but I've read a few articles that kind of insinuated that she doesn't love her performance in this movie, and I feel like it was because there are these sort of like technical shots that I think are just brilliant. Like there's this sequence where Frances McDormand watches a building explode, and she thinks the man she loved was in that building. And so it's a shot of her watching the building explode, and she's on a green screen. And then it fades to her holding a bouquet of flowers, and she's at her husband's funeral. And like, to go through that emotionally as an actor, I don't know what you could even do. But
right, because that's such an abstract thing to play.
It's such an abstract thing to play. But this movie is just full of weird, abstract, Raimi-esque ideas like that, where the shots are just completely pulp. It's just complete pulp flying off the screen. Every image is a comic book. Watch Darkman, and I think anyone who watches Darkman, I think you'll kind of see where Ang Lee's Hulk came from. I think there's a lot of visual panache that is kind of inspired from Darkman, and I just think it's the best. It's the most visually arresting comic book movie ever made because every moment of it is just entertaining. It is a silly film sometimes, but I love it so much, and I love Darkman so much. And then finally, number 10 is a Lynn Ramsey film from 2018 that I absolutely love called You Were Never Really Here, and I think that movie is fantastic. I think it is, in my opinion,
I gotta watch it.
Far better than the movies that inspired it. Like I think that You Were Never Really Here is a perfect movie. I think that it's inspired by movies like Taxi Driver, but I don't love Taxi Driver, and I love You Were Never Really Here. I really just think that the character is so interesting and so tragic, and the movie itself it's told so visually. Like it's the visual language of You Were Never Really Here is brilliant to me. It's a perfectly directed film, and I'm so excited for Lynn Ramsey. She is such an exciting director. I've seen We Need to Talk About Kevin, this movie, right, and then also Maudvern Cowler. And Maudvern Cowler is another one that is just great, but I think You Were Never Really Here is her masterpiece.
That's awesome. I haven't seen it, and I've heard that it's incredible and that it's intense, and it's a lot.
Very intense. But it's not... I was afraid of watching it because I thought it was going to be so intense that it's not an intenseness that I don't think you can handle or that audiences can handle.
No, of course,
I think she shoots it in a way that it's, what would you say? It's palatable intensity, but it is intense.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, those are my top 10. That rounds it up.
That's beautiful. Hell yeah.